Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to understanding the complex forces shaping our world. Today, we're really wrestling with something huge, a phenomenon that's fundamentally redefined youth culture. This collision between short-form video, Reels, TikTok, Shorts, and the very structure of how we communicate, how we tell stories.
It really is an incredible power dynamic we're looking at here. Social media, well, initially promised us this big open digital space, right? A way to build communities, connect, express ourselves freely.
Yeah, the dream of the early internet, almost.
Exactly. But the critical challenge, and it really comes through in the sources we've analyzed, is this. Are these platforms actually optimizing for human connection? Or are they just ruthlessly optimized for continuous fragmented consumption, basically training our attention spans to just seek the next little hit?
That's the tension, isn't it? That's what we need to explore. And our deep dive today, well, it's pretty comprehensive. We've pulled from research looking at the general mental health effects of heavy social media use, specific consumer behaviors driven by formats like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, the commercial angle.
And maybe most critically, a really powerful cultural critique that details how these platform algorithms are structurally eroding traditional narrative depth, like storytelling itself.
Our goal here is to move way past the simple, the hand-wringing warnings about screen time. Everyone knows that part.
Sure.
We need to look at the structural changes these platforms are imposing, not just on the mental health of young people, though that's crucial, but on communication itself, on learning habits, even on the viability of cultural memory, maybe. We're trying to decode the digital architecture.
Okay, let's unpack this. So first things first, we have to establish just how absolutely central these digital environments are for young people today. The research confirms it. Social media profoundly influences youth. It alters communication, self-expression, social interaction.
It's not just a part of their lives. For this generation, it's often the main stage, the primary place where they're developing their identity.
Exactly.
And when we talk about short-form video specifically, those really quick, rapidly edited, almost dopamine-spiking clips on Reels, Shorts, TikTok, the prevalence is?
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking.
How prevalent?
The data points from the research show that the majority, a commanding 75% of youth surveyed, consume this content either daily or at least a few times a week.
75%. Wow.
Yeah, that's a constant, almost ambient presence in their routine. It's dictating where their attention goes pretty much all the time.
That level of saturation, it means they're almost always in either performance mode or consumption mode, doesn't it?
That's a good way to put it. And there's clear platform dominance here, too. Instagram Reels seems to be the powerhouse right now, preferred by 70% of respondents.
70% for Reels. What about others?
YouTube Shorts is next, but way behind at 20%.
Huh. That's a massive gap. Does the research give us any clues why? Is it the content itself, or is it maybe Instagram just pushing Reels really hard algorithmically?
The sources suggest it's probably a feedback loop, But the algorithmic emphasis is huge. Instagram, obviously facing competition from TikTok, aggressively pushes Reels into everyone's feed.
Right.
And that rewards creators who conform to that specific format. The content itself, then, is often highly visual, it's trend-aligned, music-driven, makes it incredibly sticky.
Okay.
But what really stood out in the consumption data was the time commitment. This isn't just, a quick check-in while waiting for the bus.
Tell us what you mean. How much time are we talking?
The sources reveal that the majority of respondents, 65%, are spending a sustained 30 minutes to 2 hours daily consuming short-form video.
Daily. Up to 2 hours a day.
Yeah, think about that. 2 hours of fragmented attention, maybe 5 days a week. That's, 10 hours a week? Basically training your brain for distraction.
It really confirms this medium isn't just background noise. It's a huge chunk of their routine.
Exactly. It suggests their default mental state might be shifting towards that rapid, low-friction kind of engagement.
And that level of constant consumption, it seems to come with a pretty steep psychological toll. The literature review highlights a really complex and often negative relationship between heavy use and mental well-being.
Absolutely. The correlation is clear. Heavy social media use is strongly linked to heightened anxiety, depressive symptoms, and body dissatisfaction. But we need to look at how this is happening, not just that it's happening.
Right. The mechanism.
And the key mechanism seems to be social comparison.
Okay, but social comparison isn't new. We've always compared ourselves to others, to media figures. How does the platform structure make it, more damaging than traditional media ever was.
That's a great point. In traditional media, you kind of understood you were looking at highly polished, maybe distant celebrities, right?
Okay.
Actors, models.
Sure, there was a separation.
On social platforms, the comparison feels much closer. It's peers, or at least people who seem like peers, influencers who cultivate that just like you vibe.
Uh-huh.
So this constant exposure to curated content photos filtered to perfection, videos showing seemingly effortless success, lives edited to remove all the boring bits or the hard stuff. It fosters deeply unrealistic standards.
Yeah, I can see that.
The sources show this leads directly to a decreased sense of life satisfaction and drastically increased feelings of inadequacy, especially around body image. Young people are constantly comparing their messy, everyday reality to someone else's carefully constructed highlight reel.
And then there's the more acute threat, the specific danger of cyberbullying. The research flags that as a massive negative influence on mental health.
Oh, definitely. It generates intense feelings of loneliness, anxiety. The sources point out that the real problem with cyberbullying is its relentless nature.
How so?
Unlike, say, schoolyard bullying, which might stop when you go home, the online nature of it means the harassment lingers. It's often public, it follows you everywhere on your device, and it's incredibly difficult to escape or even stop sometimes. That just heightens its sustained negative impact on a young person's psychological state.
Right, it's inescapable in a way.
Exactly.
And compounding all of this is the fundamental physical impact. It's hard to overlook the connection the research draws between excessive screen time and sleep disruption.
Yes, and it's a really vicious circular problem. Excessive screen time, especially right before bed, explicitly disrupts essential sleep patterns. That's partly the blue light, partly the mental stimulation.
Okay.
But maybe more insidious is the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that the algorithm actively cultivates. Young people feel compelled to check the feed just one last time because the platform is explicitly designed to always have something new, something potentially unmissable for them. This creates this perpetual cycle of sleep debt. And lack of sleep, as we know, contributes further to psychological distress, makes it harder to cope the next day, lowers resilience. It just spirals.
So moving from the individual emotional sphere to the social one, social media certainly offers benefits, right? Connectivity, finding support networks, especially for niche interests or identities.
Sure, we shouldn't dismiss that.
But the research repeatedly points out this comes at a measurable cost in terms of altered communication.
It does. While social media enables connection with peers, and that's important, the reliance on digital communication can potentially diminish face-to-face interactions. The research suggests this can actually foster social isolation in some cases.
Paradoxical, isn't it? Connects us, but isolates us.
It can be. Overuse might result in fewer in-person encounters. And studies even note an increase in miscommunications, even within families, because tone, nuance, context, they all get lost when communication is reduced to text messages or brief digital snippets.
And the nature of the connections themselves, the ones made online, the research seems to suggest they can be, well, superficial, transactional even. How did the sources talk about that superficiality?
They often defined it by the lack of depth and sustained mutual vulnerability. The relationships can sometimes be based more on performance and validation, likes, comments, shares, rather than shared experiences or deep emotional labor.
Right, chasing metrics instead of connection.
And this creates what the sources call a challenge to the development of essential social skills. Things like reading nuanced body language, managing uncomfortable silences in a conversation, negotiating conflict face-to-face. These are skills primarily developed through in-person interaction.
And if that interaction is minimized.
Those skills can atrophy, or maybe never fully develop in the first place.
Which means the need to balance online and offline activities isn't just some vague lifestyle recommendation. The research really emphasizes it as critical. Critical for preserving positive family dynamics and for ensuring that core social development isn't impeded by the constant demands of a digital life.
It absolutely requires proactive engagement from parents, from educators. If that balance isn't intentionally sought out and maintained, there's a real risk that core social competencies get replaced by a focus on a digital reality that is, by its very design, often filtered, misleading, and optimized for constant external validation rather than internal growth.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the emotional toll, the social dynamics. What about the cognitive cost? And alongside that, the sheer commercial efficiency of this short-form video model. What happens to thinking and learning when the brain is constantly conditioned by this barrage of quick clips?
Well, when we talk about cognitive load, The academic environment seems to suffer almost immediately. Excessive use is strongly linked to massive distraction, severely decreased concentration on academic work. It's the constant alerts, the vibrations, the notifications. They just break the flow of focused thinking.
It sounds like it changes the very habit of learning. I've heard this described as the context switching penalty. Is that what the research points to?
That's precisely what the research is getting at. That constant barrage of updates, the impulse to check what's new, it fosters a habit of frequent task switching. Every time a student interrupts a complex task like, say, reading a dense history chapter or working through a multi-step math problem to check a 15-second reel, their brain pays a penalty. It takes time and mental energy to disengage, check the video, and then re-engage and refocus on the original task. This habit fundamentally undermines the depth and quality of learning because students find it genuinely difficult to concentrate on academic content for extended, deep periods.
And that ties right into the platform culture of instant gratification, doesn't it? Yeah. If sustained attention feels painful or difficult, then sustained learning becomes painful too.
Correct. Social media, particularly short-form video, promotes a craving for rapid, bite-sized knowledge. Why struggle through a dense article when a short video can supposedly summarize the key points in 60 seconds?
Right, the quick fix.
Exactly. This reduces the perseverance and patience required for in-depth, sustained study and critical analysis. The sources found that if a student can't get the answer or the stimulus, the hook, in the first few seconds, they're highly likely to just swipe away. That directly impacts their ability to handle complex academic material that requires wrestling with ambiguity and, frankly, just patience.
And thinking about information consumption, the research raises serious concerns about misinformation too. If students are constantly relying on these quick, often unvetted videos, their capacity to critically analyze material must be impacted.
Well, that's a direct threat to academic rigor. Students can struggle to differentiate between, say, a peer-reviewed source and some slickly produced bit of misinformation that the algorithm happens to be pushing because it gets engagement. The sheer volume and velocity of false or misleading content on these platforms, it requires a sophisticated critical filter that many young people just haven't developed yet. And that directly affects the quality of academic research they might produce. Digital literacy, therefore, becomes absolutely fundamental. It's not an add-on, it's a core academic requirement now.
Absolutely. But let's flip the coin. Why are these short-form videos so incredibly effective? Because let's be honest, they are brilliant marketing tools. Let's dive into how this actually translates into measurable commercial success.
It is startlingly effective. I mean, the first data point just confirms the sheer visibility. 85% of surveyed youth have encountered branded content in short-form videos.
85%. So brands know exactly where their target audience is spending those, 30 minutes to 2 hours every single day?
The attention is basically guaranteed. They know where the eyeballs are.
And the research doesn't just tell us if they see branded content, but what makes them actually engage with it. What makes a young person like, comment, or share that branded video? The top factors are pretty clearly defined, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You can almost see them as the 4 pillars of short-form engagement. Number 1, overwhelmingly, is entertaining content. That's 70%.
Okay, entertainment first.
Second, creative visuals, highly valued at 60%. Third, relatable content, something that feels authentic or speaks to their experience, gets 55%.
Relatability, interesting.
And fourth, crucially, reflecting that cognitive shift we just talked about. Short and to the point, messaging is preferred by 50%.
So entertainment, visuals, relatability, and brevity.
That's the formula. And this research confirms that the algorithm, and thus the successful content, rewards spectacle, immediate visual punch, and brevity over, say, thoughtful explanation or detailed information.
That emphasis on entertainment and brevity over deep info, it's exactly why you see products integrated into a quick dance challenge or some humorous sketch rather than a traditional, maybe more informative advertisement.
Precisely. The product gets contextualized as a tool for fun or identity expression, not just a thing to buy.
It's almost like the ad disappears into the entertainment.
Exactly. And this leads us directly to the incredible power of the influencer economy, which leverages trust to bypass a lot of the traditional advertising skepticism people have built up.
Right. The research showed that 70% of respondents express increased trust in brands that collaborate with influencers they follow. 70%. That's a huge endorsement of the influencer's perceived credibility.
That trust is built primarily through the parasocial relationship. We should probably define that clearly for you listening.
Good idea.
It's that one-sided, non-reciprocal sense of intimacy and connection that a viewer develops toward a creator, even though the creator, of course, has no idea the individual viewer exists.
Like feeling you know them.
Exactly. Because the creator feels like a friend, or maybe a trusted older sibling, or just someone relatable. Their recommendation carries enormous weight. That built up, often carefully manufactured trust is then seamlessly transferred to the brand being promoted. It acts as a major credibility builder, far more effective than a corporate logo saying the same thing.
So it's not just about brand awareness anymore. This is clearly about driving immediate action. The research confirms a strong, measurable impact on actual consumer behavior, right? Showing that these short-form videos are really effective conversion tools.
Absolutely. Over 55% of respondents reported being influenced by short-form branded videos to actually explore or even purchase a product.
More than half.
Yeah, this confirms that the effectiveness of this medium is pretty much unquestionable when a commercial goal is driving quick action and high-velocity consumer decision-making. The combination of those high engagement factors, entertainment, visuals, relatability, brevity, and that powerful parasocial trust makes it an incredibly efficient marketing powerhouse.
Okay, here's where, for me, it gets really interesting and maybe a bit disturbing. We're moving from the effects, the mental health impacts, the consumer behavior, to the architecture. We've established these platforms are hyper-efficient for commerce, for instant communication. But structurally, what are they actually doing to our culture, to our capacity for depth? We need to look at this idea of the structural imperative, the algorithm itself acting as the architect.
Right. This section of the research analyzes a really fundamental shift, a shift from what was maybe once conceived as a participatory culture of genuine expression to what the sources call a performative economy of visibility. The core argument here, and it's fascinating, is that content is no longer primarily a medium of meaning. It's become a vehicle optimized purely for platform metrics, likes, shares, watch time.
And the consequence of that optimization is what the research labels the death of narrative. Is that right?
That's the provocative term they use, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is that content has become fragmented, hyper-formatted to fit the platform's needs, and often completely devoid of narrative continuity or context. Users are incentivized to produce content units.
Content units.
Yeah, these discrete, often contestless posts or short videos, optimized solely for platform metrics, not for any kind of expressive depth or complex storytelling potential.
Can you give an example of a content unit?
Sure. Think about a short video clip set to a trending audio track. Often, the original meaning of that audio or the specific visual context of the creator using it becomes completely irrelevant. The focus is just on rapid delivery, high emotional valence, making you feel something quickly and fitting the trend. And creators are really pressured to conform. Think about those specific visual pressures cited in the research, the ones that reward homogeneity.
Like what?
Like the required YouTube thumbnail face trope.
Yeah.
You know, the exaggerated surprise or shock expression.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Or the rigidly defined TikTok jump cut dance sequences set to the same trending song everyone else is using.
Okay, I see the conformity. But wait a second, isn't conforming to a popular aesthetic or style just part of creativity in any medium? I mean, artists work within genres, right? A creator still has to be imaginative within those constraints. Is the loss of authenticity really that profound? Are we overstating it?
That's a really fair question. And the research argues the difference is profound. Because the format isn't being chosen by the creator because it's the best way to tell their story or express their complex idea.
It's chosen because...
It's chosen purely based on its algorithmic viability. Does the algorithm like this format right now? Will it push it out? The creator isn't really choosing the format. The platform, through its algorithm, dictates the format to maximize engagement and data extraction.
Ah, okay.
So the pressure isn't just aesthetic, like choosing to paint in an impressionist style. It's structural. The format dictates the message, and in doing so, it can neutralize genuine originality, because originality might not fit the algorithm's current preferences.
That idea of platformization, the platform as the active agent, that seems key then. The sources argue platforms aren't just neutral pipes for information. They're actively structuring user behavior through their design, through the algorithms, through how they handle monetization.
Exactly. The algorithm essentially becomes the scriptwriter. It sets the rules of the game. If you want visibility, if you want your stuff seen, you must try to reverse engineer the algorithm. Which means creators spend enormous amounts of time studying trends, analyzing the best time to post, what sound to use, exactly how many seconds the video should be for optimal reach. This whole process starts to replace authentic self-expression with what the research calls performative mimicry.
Mimicry. Just copying what works.
Pretty much. Users replicate what the algorithm rewards, leading to this kind of stifling monoculture where conformity gets amplified and genuine originality, which often takes more time, more depth, maybe doesn't fit the trend, gets penalized by simply not being shown to anyone.
So this leads us into what the sources define as the post-content paradigm. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a stark term. It suggests we're in an era where the word content no longer really refers to meaningful communication or narrative in the traditional sense.
Instead, it refers to...
It refers purely to these algorithmically optimized media units we were talking about. The fundamental purpose of posting something isn't primarily to inform or communicate deeply or share a complex story. It's simply to capture engagement, the likes, the shares, the comments, the watch time, because that's what feeds the platform's data economy. The substance becomes secondary to the action it provokes.
So if McLuhan said, the medium is the message, maybe now the metric is the message.
That's a perfect way to put it, precisely. Content gets stripped of context, of depth. A video might go viral not because it offers nuanced substance, but because it perfectly utilizes a trending sound effect or a specific color palette that the algorithm currently favors. The creator's goal inevitably shifts. They stop being primarily storytellers, aiming for understanding, and risk becoming just data points in a perpetual feedback loop, aiming mainly for platform validation through metrics.
Wow, that algorithmic pressure must also really affect the coherence of someone's identity online, right? If the platform dictates the style, a creator almost has to fragment who they are to fit into each different box.
That's exactly the fragmentation of identity the research talks about. Each platform enforces its own distinct style grammar, its own set of expectations and rewarded behaviors.
Right.
So a creator has to perform this constant, often labor-intensive adaptation. Think about someone with a serious, long-form, maybe explanatory YouTube persona. Yeah. They can't just paste that content onto TikTok and expect it to work.
No, definitely not.
They have to develop a completely new, much punchier, trend-aligned persona to succeed there. This constant adaptation, this code switching between platforms, it dilutes creative authenticity and fundamentally undermines any sense of coherence in their overall digital storytelling. Huh? Who are they really across all these spaces?
And the broader cultural implications of all this fragmentation, they seem profound. Historically, storytelling, complex narratives, myths, they carried our shared values, our cultural memory. They gave us coherence, moral frameworks, ways to understand the world.
Exactly. And short-form content, by its very nature, fragments these essential cultural structures.
Yeah.
Platforms don't really support myth, they support moments, fleeting moments.
How does that play out?
Well, a complex mythic figure, a hero, a villain, a foundational character from history or literature gets reduced. They become a meme, maybe just an aesthetic cue, dark academia or whatever, or a quick punchline in a skit. There's just no space or time for transformation, for complex context, for the slow unfolding of meaning. It's all transaction and immediate reaction.
So the platform's optimized for scrolling through stimuli rather than dwelling in stories.
Well, that's what the research observes, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling, keep reacting, don't stop and think too deeply.
So if we can only consume stimulus and reaction, if we lose the habit of reflection and grappling with complexity, what's the ultimate cost for us as individuals, as a society?
The ultimate cost, the sources conclude quite chillingly, is empathy.
Empathy, how so?
When complex storytelling collapses, empathy is often the first casualty. Because stories, good stories, are the primary mechanisms that teach us how to inhabit other lives, how to grapple with opposing viewpoints, how to sit with discomfort and ambiguity and nuance. Short-form content, by optimizing for immediate triggers and quick reactions, essentially trains users to react, not to reflect. We risk losing the ability, or maybe just the patience, to follow a long, complex human journey, or sit through a difficult explanation, or understand a perspective fundamentally different from our own. We become consumers of fleeting moments, increasingly disconnected from shared, sustained meaning.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Where do we go from here? We've detailed this extraordinary commercial efficiency of short-form video. It works incredibly well for that. But we've also laid out its potential structural damage to sustained attention, to mental well-being, to cultural narrative depth. How do we as a society, as individuals, maybe push back? How do we mitigate this harm and maybe reclaim some control?
The research is very clear that the critical starting point is, perhaps unsurprisingly, the home. The role of parental guidance is absolutely crucial. But not just rules. Parents need to foster open lines of communication and trust. Create an environment where it's about ongoing discussion rather than just punitive policing after something goes wrong.
Right, it needs to be proactive. Not just setting rules like no phone after 9 p.m., but actually teaching values.
Exactly. Parents should be actively teaching appropriate online conduct, focusing specifically on things like empathy, respect, and critical thinking,
Yeah.
the very skills that, as we've discussed, the algorithm itself can sometimes seem to erode.
And practically speaking, what kind of guidance are we talking about?
Well, the guidance needs to be concrete. Parents need to set clear expectations about use. They should strongly consider limiting social media use by age, which several sources recommend. They need to clearly outline penalties or consequences for breaches of trust or rules. And yes, monitoring online activity is often necessary, especially concerning privacy settings and the kinds of interactions kids are having.
That sounds like a lot for parents.
It is. And furthermore, the sources really stress the importance of parents serving as wholesome digital role models themselves, promoting a balanced lifestyle that incorporates healthy offline activities. They need to show, through their own example, what safe, thoughtful, and balanced online behavior actually looks like. Kids notice hypocrisy.
Good point. Okay, so beyond the home, what about schools? Educational interventions, digital literacy programs, they seem necessary too to equip young people with the know-how to navigate this complex world safely and intelligently.
Absolutely essential. And the core objectives of these programs really need to be threefold. Develop that foundational digital literacy, impart robust critical thinking abilities, and encourage proper online conduct or digital citizenship. And education has to move beyond just, spotting fake news.
What are the more advanced components then? What should that education cover?
It needs to cover how to assess internet content, critically understanding the inherent bias in algorithms, the mechanisms of algorithmic promotion, why you're seeing what you're seeing. It must focus on understanding the implications of their digital footprint, the long-term repercussions of excessive sharing, really understanding privacy settings, the basics of how their data is harvested and used. And furthermore, these programs must actively address how to spot and report cyberbullying effectively, and importantly, how to seek support if they are victimized.
So integrating media literacy deeply into core curricula seems key then, helping youth balance their academic obligations with the constant pull of social media. Basically, training them to be masters of the tool, not the other way around.
That's the goal. Exactly. And finally, the research does offer practical recommendations for the broader ecosystem, looking beyond just parents and schools to policymakers and institutions, acknowledging that the solution has to be structural too, not just placing all the burden on individuals.
Right. So creating supportive structures within society, like integrating mental health support services directly within educational institutions, that seems like a direct response to the anxiety and depression trends we identified earlier.
Precisely. It also involves things like establishing peer support programs, leveraging the social network for good, essentially, by empowering young people to help set positive community standards online. And then we need to consider broader legal protections.
What kind of legal protections did the sources suggest might be necessary? Is it about age gating, data privacy?
It touches on all of that.
Mhm.
Given the vulnerabilities we've discussed, cyberbullying, privacy breaches, targeted, sometimes manipulative advertising aimed at minors, the sources suggest seriously considering laws and policies specifically designed to protect minors from platform exploitation. Stricter rules around data collection, algorithmic transparency, maybe even design features.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, we also need to think about promoting positive and educational content creation on the platforms themselves, trying to actively compete structurally, aesthetically, with the overwhelmingly entertainment-focused, often superficial feed. How do we make depth and learning more engaging within these formats?
That's a huge challenge. It feels like the ultimate goal across all these mitigation strategies, whether they're parental, educational, or legislative, is really empowerment. Giving young people, and maybe all of us, the tools and the awareness to make thoughtful, deliberate decisions when we interact with platforms that are, let's face it, structurally designed to demand the exact opposite. Hashtag tag outro down.
So if we try to synthesize the central conflict of this entire deep dive, on one side you have the incredible, absolutely undeniable efficiency of short-form video. 75% brand recall rates, the potential for immediate virality, this incredibly rapid-fire way of communicating. It works for certain things.
Yeah, commercially it's a powerhouse.
Right. But on the other side, you have the potential structural damage it inflicts. On sustained attention, on psychological equilibrium, on cultural narrative depth. It's almost the triumph of format over meaning.
The platforms promised us this vast expansion of connection, didn't they? But the architecture, the way they're built, it seems to have delivered fragmentation instead. We've seen that the very design of this digital world rewards brevity, spectacle, immediate reaction, much more than it rewards depth, complexity, or quiet reflection.
And when creators feel forced to abandon complexity, when they have to follow a script essentially written by an algorithm to get seen, they risk becoming just performers in a system that's primarily optimized for data extraction, not human flourishing.
So the question remains, I think, for all of us. If our digital lives are structurally incentivizing us to behave more like data points, optimizing for metrics rather than acting as authentic storytellers or thoughtful communicators, can true creativity even survive? Can intellectual curiosity? Can shared cultural memory?
It's a profound question.
The future of meaning, it seems, might depend on our willingness to intentionally slow down sometimes, to reject the infinite scroll, maybe just for a little while each day, to actively demand narrative depth, both from the content we consume and the content we create, even when the platform itself is optimized for the exact opposite.
If we are going to reclaim storytelling, reclaim depth, we have to rethink the tools we use, the formats we favor, and maybe most importantly, the quality of attention we are willing to invest.
So that's the challenge we leave with you today. What are you demanding from your content? And what are you willing to give it?